Good morning, students. We have started the revision of life process chapter. We have discussed the chapter in brief. Later, we have discussed the in-text questions. Then we have started the exercises also, chapter and exercises. In that, we have completed some questions in the last revision part 3. Let us discuss the remaining questions also. How is food transported in plants? See, water transportation occurs by means of root pressure and transpirational pull, which are purely physical processes. No energy is spent in them. And water transport is unidirectional. It moves only from roots to top of the plant body, never ever in reverse direction. And there is no other term for water transport. Whereas food transport, it uses both the physical forces as well as the chemical force, or they spend energy. Food transport spends energy also. The food transport in the plants, it occurs through phloem, and the process of food transport through phloem is known as translocation. It is a specific term. For xylem transport of water, there is no specific term, whereas for phloem transport of food, there is a specific term, that is translocation. As we already have learnt, phloem consists of 4 components. They are sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. The sieve tubes and companion cells are the main conducting elements of the food, and the phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers, they support these 2 things. And let us take our understanding in little more detail. As I already said, food transport by phloem does not occur by simple means of physical processes like a root pressure or transpirational pull like things. Here, little more is there. First of all, food enters at the source into the phloem, that is into sieve tubes and companion cells, by active transport method, that is by spending energy. So, where the food is synthesized, that is in the leaves also vascular bundles are there. From the leaves, food enters into the vascular bundles, that is into the phloem. How does the food enter into the phloem? By active transport, by spending energy. Once the food enters into the phloem sieve tubes, then adjacent to phloem, what is there? Xylem is there. In xylem, what is present? Water is present. So, once the food enters into the phloem sieve tubes, from the adjacent xylem vessels, the water enters into phloem by simple diffusion method itself. Water never enters from any area to any other area in the plant body by means of active transport. It enters only by simple diffusion. So here food is entering into the phloem by active transport. Once the food enters into the phloem, then from the adjacent xylem, the water is entering into the phloem by what? Simple diffusion. So, food and water both forms the food solution. Here, the transported form of food is sucrose. So, sucrose plus water forms sucrose solution. This formed sucrose solution, it gets higher osmotic potential. So anything that it is having higher osmotic potential, from that area, that solution will move to an area where there is lower osmotic potential. Right? So from the source to the other area. Generally, we call that area as sink. The food will move. Food transport generally takes place between source and sink. When food is getting synthesized, then the food is transported from source to sink. When food is not getting synthesized during autumn-like conditions, at the sink the food is stored. Then from sink back to the source area, food is transported. Food transport is bidirectional. Food transport by phloem is bidirectional, right? So food solution here, once after it is getting higher osmotic potential, it is moving to the area where there is lower osmotic potential. So food solution moves to the region of lower osmotic potential. Generally that is sink. Once the food solution reaches the destination, that is sink, food will leave the phloem and enters into sink. That is what? Food leaves the phloem and just enters into the sink area. That is where it is getting stored or it is getting utilized. But how does the food leave the phloem? How does the food enter into the phloem? By active transport. The leaving of food from the phloem also, it is carried out by active transport only. So entry of food and exit of food. Entry of food into the phloem and exit of food from the phloem both occurs by active transport only. Remember this point, very important. Right? So again active transport is utilized. Once after the food leaves from the phloem, whatever the water is present, it will move back into the xylem. And how does the water entering into the phloem? By simple diffusion. And how does the water exit from the phloem? Again by diffusion method only, right? Thank you. So that is how food is transported from source to sink when the source is functional, that is food is synthesized at leaves. When source is not functional, during autumn leaves are absent, then from the sink the food is entering into phloem, same by active transport, and it is transported to the source area where leaves are absent, and there at source area food is leaving from the phloem by again active transport, right? And water entry at the sink and water exit at the source from the phloem, it takes by means of diffusion. Okay. Now next question, describe the structure and functioning of nephron. Nephron is the functional unit of kidney, and you can refer the textbook for the diagram of nephron. Okay, in the last page of this chapter it is there. Right. Nephrons are the functional units of kidneys, and each nephron has the following parts. They are Bowman's capsule that contains glomerulus, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct. And Bowman's capsule, it is having a tough capillaries inside it, that is known as glomerulus. Proximal convoluted tubule, near to the Bowman's capsule, proximal means near to it, there is a convoluted or a spring like a folded tubule is present, that is known as proximal convoluted tubule. And there is another convoluted tubule little away from the Bowman's capsule, distal, away from, far from, that is distal convoluted tubule. In between these two, there is a hairpin like structure is present, which is known as loop of Henle, hairpin like structure. And the distal convoluted tubule is joining with a little larger duct, that is known as collecting duct. Each collecting duct is common for the utilization of 4 to 5 nephrons. So for every 4 to 5 nephrons or little more, there is one collecting duct, right? Nephron filters the blood in 3 steps. They are filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. And as I already shown here, Bowman's capsule is involved in filtration. Proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule, they are involved in reabsorption. Collecting duct, it is involved in secretion. So nephron filters the blood in 3 steps, that is filtration, reabsorption and secretion, and forms finally concentrated urine. Inside the Bowman's capsule, there is glomerulus, as I already told, that is tuft of blood capillaries. This glomerulus filters the blood that enters into the Bowman's capsule, and after filtering the blood, the initial filtrate is formed. When this initial filtrate moves through proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule, most of the useful products like ions, water, amino acids, electrolytes are reabsorbed into the surrounding blood capillaries. Covering this nephron, there are many blood capillaries that are present, which are known as vasa recta. So, most of the useful substances from the initial filtrate are reabsorbed into this vasa recta when the initial filtrate is moving through which areas? PCT, proximal convoluted tubule, LH, loop of Henle, and DCT, distal convoluted tubule. And urine is secreted finally into collecting duct. See, I have marked filtration, number 1 step, reabsorption, that is 2nd step, and secreted, 3rd step, as secretion, that is the 3rd step. So in the 3 steps, finally the urine is formed by the nephron. Next question. What are the methods used by plants to get rid of the excretory products? What are the methods used by plants to get rid of the excretory products? Like how in animals excretory products are formed. In the same way, even in plants also, by their metabolic activities, many excretory products are formed. But plants do not have excretory system in order to get rid of their excretory products. Then how do they get rid of the excretory products? So everything that it is released by some metabolic activity and it is not utilized again by that metabolic activity is considered as an excretory product. In photosynthesis, oxygen is released, but does photosynthesis use oxygen? No. So, by photosynthesis, excretory product or excretory gas that it is released is oxygen. By respiration, carbon dioxide is released, but in respiration, does carbon dioxide get used? No. It is only released by respiration. So, carbon dioxide is excretory gas in the respiratory process. Though carbon dioxide is used by photosynthesis, oxygen is used by respiration. But for photosynthesis, oxygen is excretory gas, and for respiration, carbon dioxide is what? Excretory gas in plants. These carbon dioxide and oxygen are released out by diffusion through the tiny pores in the plant body. And many of the metabolic waste products are stored in old branches and leaves, which will get shed off from the plant body during autumn season. Old branches and leaves, they generally do get shed off from the plant body during autumn season. And many of the metabolic waste products are simply stored in those old branches and leaves. When these old branches and leaves are getting shed off, automatically along with them, the metabolic waste products are also what? They are getting rid of from the, they are get rid of by the plant body, right? Some waste products are released through roots also, and some are stored or deposited near the bark as rhizins or gums. This is how plants they get rid of their excretory products. Next, how is the amount of urine produced regulated? Means regularly we are excreting about 1.5 to 2 liters of urine only. How this amount of urine is getting regulated, and in summer less amount of urine is produced. In winter more amount of urine is produced. How this amount of urine produced is regulated, right? Human kidneys, they form about 180 liters of initial filtrate in a day. But a normal human being excretes about 1.5 liter of urine per day. Then where does this 180 liter of initial filtrate is going? Out of the 180 liters of formed initial filtrate, around 178 to 178.5 liters of initial filtrate is getting reabsorbed. And as this much amount of initial filtrate is getting reabsorbed, only 1.5 to 2 liters of urine is getting released or excreted out. And the amount or the volume of the reabsorbed initial filtrate, it depends on the left out water in the body. And whatever the amount of the water that is left out in the body, based on that only the amount of urine that it is released also is depending upon. So the comparative concentration of water gives a signal to the brain. If less water is there in the body, that will give one type of signal to the brain. If more water is there in the body, that will give one type of signal. And the brain will take the corrective action. The brain will take the corrective action, either for reabsorbing water or for secreting more water. If less amount of water is there, in order to conserve water, water will be reabsorbed. If more water is there, excess water is there, excess water also should not be present in the body. So, more water will be what? Thrown out from the body. So, either for reabsorbing water or for secreting water, the brain will be commanding. That is decided by what? That is decided by the signal that it is being sent to the brain. Right. Thus, either by reabsorbing the limited water or by secreting or releasing the excess or the more water, the amount of urine that it is produced is regulated. So, with this, we have completed all the exercises, chapter and exercise of life process chapter. If possible, let us discuss some more important questions focused on board exam preparation in the next class. Thank you.